Legends about a race of little people living in the woods near sandy hills and occasionally near rocks near huge amounts of water, like the Great Lakes, were passed down by the Native Americans of North America. Petroglyph drawings of these, often referred to as hairy-faced dwarfs, depict them with horns on their heads, moving in groups of 5 to 7 people per boat. Native American folklore frequently describes the little people pulling practical jokes on humans, such as singing and then running away when someone asks where the music is. It's common knowledge that little people care about kids and rescue them from abusive or unloving parents, or in the event that a kid was abandoned and left to fend for itself in the woods, little people would take them in. According to some traditions, if an adult human were to witness the little people, they would beg them not to reveal their presence, and would reward those who did so by providing for them and their families in times of need. There were differences in the manners of the little people from tribe to tribe, and there may have been differences in their goodness or evilness. In this video, we looked at the legends of the little people told by some Native American tribes. There's a widely held misconception that little people purposefully create diversions in order to get into trouble. Some even considered them to be gods. One indigenous tribe in North America thought that the caverns in the area were home to them. Never having gone within the caverns, they dared not disturb the little people. The physical remains of these small humans have been said to have been discovered in caves in several western United States regions, most notably Montana and Wyoming. The descriptions of the bones often include details about their perfectly formed and dwarf-like appearance. Archaeologist Lawrence Londorf observes that stories frequently attempt to enhance credibility by stating that the burials, of course, are always sent to a local university or to the Smithsonian for analysis, only to have both the specimens and research results disappear. Londorf also says that the finding of 2 mummies of anencephalic infants with deformities that led some people to believe they were adults in the first half of the 20th century contributed to public belief in the existence of a group of tiny prehistoric people. Despite their best efforts, Lewis and Clark's party was unable to convince the local Native Americans to approach Spirit Mound because they were afraid of these small devils and thought them to be dangerous. Despite this, Lewis and Clark's journals revealed that Native Americans in the area of Spirit Mound, South Dakota, believed in little people who lived within the mound. Excavated in the 1830s in Coshocton County, Ohio, the tombs were thought to contain pygmy skeleton. However, upon closer inspection, it was discovered that the about 3-foot-long graves were really bone burials with bent or disarticulated bones stacked together. Some members of the Crow tribe believe the little people to be sacred ancestors and require leaving an offering for them upon entry. The Native American little people are said to live in the Pryor Mountains of Montana and Wyoming. The Pryors are famous for their fairy rings and strange happenings. The Makia, or little people, live on the rocks of Mohegan Hill. The Whip-Poor will calls for them to come after dusk. They are good spirits, but the Mohegans know that they have to be treated respectfully as per tradition. Baskets of food like corn cakes and berries or meat in the should be left for them. They gather the gifts at night, dressed in moccasin flowers for shoes. Makia actually means Whip-Poor will moccasins. Their own rules for behavior include not talking about the little people during the summer months, when they are most active, and not staring at them as they believe it is impolite. If they catch you staring, they may point a finger at you and drag you to the ground while stealing your belongings. They maintain a healthy soil and bestow benefits upon those who follow their ways. But in exchange for their compassion, they taught the Mohegan people how to cultivate maize and employ medicinal herbs. a medicine woman, lived during this time of bad spirits. One night, during a terrible storm, she heard the whip-poor-will. When she looked outside, the bird was nowhere to be found, but a small boy stood in the rain on her doorstep. It turned out that he was an adult Makia sug named Mohegan, who told her to come help someone who was sick. Despite the fierce storm, he led her through the woods a long way. Many Makia sug and Mohegans became ill as a result of the English settlers' disruption of their traditional way of life. The storm appeared to stop abruptly as they descended into the realm of the little people, where Mohegan led her to a chamber of rocks shaped like a beehive, where an elderly woman lay in bed, gravely ill. The Makia sug informed the medicine woman that this was Granny Squannet, who needed to be made well because she was powerful and known to cause storms when she argues with her husband. Worse, healers often turn to Granny Squannet when there is a severe need for assistance in healing, and here she was the one who was ill. The medicine woman treated the elderly woman for almost a moon before she recovered. In exchange for her healing, the Makia sug gave the medicine woman a basket of gifts and instructed her to remember this. She didn't open the basket until she got back, but it included quartz crystals, painted skins, and bundles of herbs. The Nunahhi, also known as the Yunwi Tsunsdi, or little people in Cherokee, are the Cherokee equivalent of fairies in traditional European folklore. The belief in fairy-like beings is universal among all ethnic groups, including all American Indian tribes. The Nunahhi literally translates to the people who live anywhere, but it is frequently translated into English as the people who live forever, or simply the immortal. Hunters would often hear the Nunahhi in the mountains singing and dancing and beating drums. But when they would go toward the sound, it would shift about and suddenly seem to be coming from behind them, or from some other direction. So the person hearing the sound would never be able to find where it was coming from. Throughout the southern Appalachian Mountains, the Nunahhi were known to have many underground townhouses, and they were especially fond of high mountain peaks where no timber ever grew. The Nunahhi were only visible to humans when they gave permission to do so. They behaved and looked like other Cherokee people when they did show up. A story about the Nunahhi tells of 4 Nunahhi women who traveled to the town of Nortili and spent hours dancing with the young men there. No one knew the women were Nunahhi. They were just women from another town or village. As the women were leaving the dance, a group of men standing outside the townhouse watched the women walk down an open trail to the Nortili River. When the women reached the river, they abruptly vanished, leaving no obvious place for them to hide. At that point, the men realized the women were Nunahhi. There are also other similar stories that tell about how the Nunahhi invited Cherokee people to come to live with them in order to avoid war and misfortune. One well-known story tells about a time long before the time of the removal, when the Nunahhi told a group of Cherokee that they would return in 7 days to carry away the townhouse along with anyone inside. The Nunahhi warned the people not to shout or make any sound as the townhouse was being carried away. On the 7th day, there was a sound like thunder that grew louder and louder as it approached the village. Despite the Nunahhi's warning to the Cherokee to remain quiet, some of the people became frightened and screamed when the ground began to shake as the Nunahhi lifted the townhouse off the ground. Some of the Nunahhi were startled by the scream and dropped a part of the townhouse, which fell to the ground and became the mound at a village called Setsi. The Nunahhi steadied themselves and carried off the remaining part of the townhouse with the people still in it to a mountain called Lone Peak, where it was changed to solid rock, and the people inside it became invincible and immortal like the Nunahhi. The Shoshone tribe of North America's Rocky Mountains had a fabled race of little people known as the Nemrga. Shoshone stories describe the Nemrga as an aggressive people who shot poisoned arrows from small bows. The word Nemrga is roughly translated as people-eaters from the Shoshone and Paiute languages. They also supposedly killed their own people by striking them in the head if they became too sick to be active members of their community. Although thought to be mythical, the reality of Nemrga tales was called into question in 1932 with the discovery of the San Pedro Mountains mummy, a 14 and 36 centimeter tall mummy, 6.5 and 17 centimeters, found in a cave 60 miles south of Casper, Wyoming. Extensive tests were carried out on the mummy with the initial belief that it was a hoax. Tests performed by the American Museum of Natural History and certified genuine by the Anthropology Department at Harvard stated that the mummy was estimated to be the body of a full-grown adult, approximately 65 years old. The mummy's damaged spine, broken collarbone, and smashed skull, exposing brain tissue and congealed blood, suggested that it had been violently killed. Adding to its strangeness, the mummy had a full set of canine teeth, all of which were overly pointed. When examined by the University of Wyoming, the body was found to be that of a deceased anencephalic infant, whose cranial deformity gave it the appearance of a miniature adult. A second mummy, examined by University of Wyoming anthropologist George Gill and the Denver Children's Hospital in the 1990s, was also shown to be an encephalic infant. DNA testing showed it to be Native American, and radiocarbon dating dated it to about 1700. The missionary Zeisberger wrote of a burial ground near Coshocton, Ohio, that is said to contain many remains of a pygmy race that is about 3 feet 91 centimeters tall. The long rows of graves of the pygmy race at Coshocton were regularly arranged with heads to the west, a circumstance which has given rise to the theory that these people were sun worshippers, facing the daily approach of the sun god over the eastern hills. Zeisberger wrote in his historical account from 1778, "It is not necessary to conclude that this pygmy race is descended from the river people of Hindustan or Egypt, just because the sun worship theory is accepted. Whenever they are discovered, early humans appear to have worshipped the sun. Due to extensive farming and modern inhabitation, these burial grounds have been lost." However, missionary observations indicate that these Aboriginal people were able to divide land areas into squares, use a stone axe, and make good pottery. Other than these few facts, the history of this strange race is unknown. Crow folklore says the little people live in the Pryor Mountains, a small mountain range in Carbon County, Montana, and Bighorn County, Montana. Petroglyphs on rocks in the mountains, the crow said, were made by these demon-like creatures. Because the little people live there, the mountains are sacred to the crow. The little people are said to be no more than 18 inches 46 centimeters, or knee-high. Crow folklore differs slightly from that of other tribes in describing the little people of the Pryor Mountains as having large, nearly round bellies, incredibly strong but short arms and legs, and little or no neck. In the story of Lost Boy or Burnt Face, the crow told of a little person who killed a full-grown bull elk and carried it off just by tossing the elk's head over its shoulder. The crow expression, strong as a dwarf, references the incredible strength of these little people. However, they are incredibly fierce warriors, feed primarily on meat, and have many sharp canine-like teeth in their mouth. Nearby tribes told stories of the little people tearing the hearts out of their enemies' horses, stories which may have helped keep these tribes from making war on the crow. Each year, the crow made an offering to the little people at Medicine Rocks, also known as Castle Rocks, where they believed some little people lived, the Pryor Mountains. Little people were also known for stealing children, food, medicine, and tobacco. The crow also believed that the little people created stone arrowheads for the crow themselves only knew how to make bone arrowhead. Anyone who tried to play a trick on the little people would incur their wrath, which usually destroyed him and his entire family. The little people, sometimes referred to as spirit dwarves, were also said to be able to confer blessings or spiritual insight to certain individuals. Generally speaking, the crow would refuse to enter the Prior Mountains due to their belief in the little people. However, on occasion, a lone crow would travel to the Medicine Rocks and fast, where one of the little people might manifest as a lone animal to teach the seeker these insights. The crow tells of 2 ways to pass through the mountains without being harmed by the little people, however. Both involved offerings. According to their folklore, the little people had befriended a young crow boy. The boy told the crow that there was a pass through the mountains which the crow could use, but they would need to shoot arrows ahead of them as they traveled as an offering to the little people. This pass, now called Prior Gap, was known to the crow as Hits with the Arrows. The crow name for Prior Creek was Arrow Creek, and the Prior Mountains were known to them as the Bapuo, or Arrowhead Mountains. However, other kinds of offerings, such as beads, cloth, or tobacco, could also be left in order to win safe passage through the mountains. A dancer's position in the Sundance could only be granted by the little people, who were also essential to the crow practice of the Sundance. The little people were said to be owners of any Sundance lodge that was built, and they judged who among the participants was truly sincere, conferring only on them any visions or spiritual insight. The little people play a major role in a Crow Nation folk tale about the lost boy, also known as Burnt Face, who suffers terrible burns to his face after falling into a bonfire. His people move north one day, following the buffalo. But Burnt Face goes south and builds a Sundance lodge. The little people come out to talk to him, removing his scars, showing him where his band has gone, and giving him healing powers to help his people. Burnt Face kept his name, but became a great chief among his people. A different story told by the crow describes a boy who fell out of his trap noise when his family moved to new hunting grounds. The little people took him in and raised him in a cave in the Prior Mountains, where he grew to be extraordinarily strong and absorbed some of their magic. As a kind of amusement, he started to construct tall columns made of rocks and stone, which is how Medicine Rocks came to be. In the little people, a hunter experiences a string of bad luck while hunting in the Prior Mountains. Seeking guidance from the little people, he shoots a deer and then drops it over a cliff in Black Canyon as an offering to the spirits. This leads to a string of good luck, and after returning home, he goes back to the mountains the following day, wondering if the dead deer is still where he left it. The deer's body has vanished. The mythical little people, known as Jogah, which means the drum dancers, are described as knee-high to about 4 feet, 0 inches, 1.22 meters tall when seen by people, usually children, elders, and spiritual healers. They are usually invisible, but there are ways to tell if they are around, such as drumming without any visible drummers nearby, and leaving rings of bare earth and bowls and stones or mud, where offerings like tobacco and fingernails can be made. They are also used to explain disembodied lights and bad luck. The Jogah are divided into several groups. The Nunahhi attend to the flora of an area, telling it when to grow and how good its yield will be. They are known to help respectful Iroquois farmers. They are known to love strawberries and take the form of American robins if their news is good, or owls if it is bad. The Odors are the subterranean guardians of our world, protecting it from creatures of the underworld that would spread disease, and, in the case of the white buffalo, chaos. The Gahangas, or stone throwers or rollers, live in rocky areas like streams, and their favorite game is numerous other native Indian tribes throughout the Americas, and even non-Indian tribes in Europe have many more tales regarding the existence of all the little people. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and give us a thumbs up for more historical stuff like this. See you in our upcoming videos.